I'm Jacob Madrid. Went to LPO from 2008 to 2013. Would have graduated 2013, but I joined the night school program to have my first child and ended up getting my GED instead. Needed to work to take care of my kids. But being at LPO was probably the best thing that ever happened in my life as far as education went. I would say that seventh grade was a little tough due to, it wasn't just being at, new school from elementary school to a big school. Home life was a little bit difficult with a lot of things. Learning experience for a lot of people in my family on new things that we kind of needed to adjust to. And then going from that type of a lifestyle into a bigger school setting was a little difficult. It was easier to focus when I was sent to LPO. It was easier to have that one-on-one contact with the teacher. It was a lot smaller classes. It was a lot more kind of less chaotic, I would say. People who tend to struggle, in my opinion, in a bigger setting, it's mainly because they can't really get that one-on-one interaction with the teacher where they feel like they're failing themselves, and so it's easier at LPO for that. My favorite thing about LPO was it was family. You were treated like family. They called the family meetings. It was basically your giant school assembly, and in our case it was 40, 50 students maybe. You were treated like family. We called it the family meeting. We addressed everything like a normal school would. However, we didn't talk to each other as like an authoritative way. It was more of, this is the issues with our school, this is where we're at here, let's adjust this, fix this, make things better here. We had probably some of the funnest experiences in classes. Being a smaller class setting, you experienced an education level where I didn't feel I got being in a middle school. To get rid of the middle school for LPO was just astonishing to me. Georgie was the greatest teacher ever. I know we would have filled in a new teacher once Georgie would have phased herself out. Moving the middle school students to the Sandpoint Middle School was probably the hardest thing for me to hear, because I felt like being in a smaller setting, the kids who struggled being in the bigger ones were about to struggle a lot more. It was very heartbreaking to have to know that other kids were going to struggle in a way that I struggled, if not worse. Being in that bigger school setting and that more chaotic level, the level of discipline that comes from the middle school in Sandpoint was a level of heartbreak that no kid should ever have to experience. Moving the LPO into the portables was probably the most ridiculous option I've ever heard in my life. You can't take 40, 50 students and stuff them in a portable and expect them to feel like they're in a setting where they're treated like they're the number one priority, especially when you stuff it behind the school that they were told they couldn't go to. That's the hardest thing to do. What are they supposed to feel like when they're stuck in portables and every other student is stuck in a giant $1 million building? I don't think that it's fair for them to have to get the bare minimum as far as education goes. We're supposed to take priority in the students, the children, for their education level, and you're not going to get that when you are stuck in a box, basically. My biggest take as an adult, looking back at my life for the 4 or 5 years that I spent at Lake Pend Oreille High School, was that I would have never been as successful as I am with myself, as well as learning who I am and how to cope with things that I coped with, if it wasn't for LPO. I would not be the level of education that I would not have. I feel being in the middle school setting, because I would have been expelled, or I would have been put in detention every single day, so I wouldn't have been getting the level of education that I should get being at LPO. LPO knows how to work with people who most people don't know it's called, but it's called the 504 plan, and those are people who struggle with a more attitude level based, or feel like mentally it's a learning struggle. So when you have teachers like those at LPO who can be more one-on-one and can understand what that is, it's easier for a child to become more successful. And for me, having that, being at LPO, I was able to learn things easier. I was able to focus on my education, as well as having a teacher who's focused on my education as well, not 30 different students in one classroom. So being an adult, having my GED, and actually passed my GED with college level scores where I could go to college, is probably completely unimaginable being at the middle school and doing that, or being at the high school and doing that. So if it wasn't for LPO, I wouldn't be where I am today.